Your brand may be staying on top of current trends, but are you agile enough to stay relevant, resilient, and successful as customers, competition, and the world continues to change at a breakneck pace? I'm thrilled to share the newly revised version of my first book, The Agile Brand. I'm calling it The Agile Brand Revisited. It's been updated to reflect our continually changing world, and it provides 7 principles that form the backbone of an agile brand, offering detailed insights and actionable steps for incorporating them into your business strategy. This is the book that started it all, and I'm excited to share it with you. It's now available in print and digital formats and available everywhere. Learn more by going to the Agile Brand Guide website at www.agilebrandguide.com. Welcome to Season 4 of The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we discuss business agility through customer experience, employee experience, and digital transformation. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom. The Agile World podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To read more about the topics discussed on this show, you can go to my website at gregkihlstrom.com and read my latest articles or get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, now available on Amazon and other retailers. My name is Greg Kihlstrom, and I'm the host of the Agile Brand podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of ESG, or environmental, social, and governance initiatives as part of a corporate citizenship. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Chuck Ammann, EVP and Chief Legal Officer and Chief ESG Officer at Semtech. Chuck, welcome to the show.
It's nice to be here, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to talking about this topic with you. Before we get started, though, why don't you start by giving a little background on yourself as well as what you're currently doing at Semtech?
Sure, happy to do that. I actually have one of the more interesting jobs at Semtech and have dual roles, actually. As the first Chief ESG Officer, I help direct the development, oversight, promotion of the company's advancements of its key environmental, social, and governance initiatives that focus on corporate citizenship, sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and human capital management for our 400 plus global employees. Semtech, as you probably know, is a leading global supplier of high-performance analog and mixed-signal semiconductors and advanced algorithms, which is a mouthful, but we do it for the infrastructure, high-end consumer, and industrial equipment markets. I first started out at Semtech in 2014 as the Executive Vice President, the General Counsel, and Secretary of the company, where I report to the CEO, which I still do, and oversee all the legal operations with 31 offices, worldwide in 14 different countries. And I also serve as one of Semtech's primary point of contacts for the board of directors and its standing committees, which is the Nominating and Governance Committee, Audit Committee, and Compensation Committee. Then last April, I was additionally appointed to the role of Chief Legal Officer and Chief ESG Officer, where I now additionally oversee our organization's strategies and goals and programs and practices that are designed to drive sustainable long-term results and efficiencies. ESG, has always been core, I think, to what Semtech does. But we formalized this role to build on a solid foundation of ESG initiatives and technology innovation that have been well underway at Semtech. Over the last year, I focused on key initiatives related to innovation, leadership, employee engagement, and other things. I guess one of my favorite things about my role is I get to connect with so many different team members across different parts of the business to collaborate on, new and interesting approaches to ESG. As the general counsel and now the chief legal officer, I had visibility across the organization to begin with. And this role, I think, just adds to that and gives me sort of a change of pace from the legal side to more of a business role.
Great. Well, yeah, let's dive in here. And so, as you just mentioned, you were recently appointed as Semtech's first ESG officer, which definitely an important step for the organization. So, what do you see as the role of ESG in the context of corporate citizenship, not just for Semtech, but really for corporations at large?
Yeah, that's a great question. The profile and the scope of ESG programs has really grown and evolved, especially over the past few years. I think it's now at the forefront in terms of creating value for all stakeholders. We used to talk in terms of shareholders, but now we talk in terms of stakeholders. And these are everybody from shareholders to employees to suppliers to customers and more. As such, many companies are realizing, as we have, that ESG needs its own lane, if you would, a focused discipline that connects to the entire organization. The role of ESG in the context of corporate citizenship, I think, is to understand the impact that the business can have on the environment and the community at large, and to ensure that ESG positively influences the various companies' business decisions.
Yeah. And you touched on this a little bit as you were introducing yourself, but would like to dive into this a little bit more. How do you see your role as a leader in these ESG efforts?
Yeah, at Semtech, it's my job to ensure that our ESG initiatives, to begin with, are consistent with our longstanding company core values, of which there are 5. One of them is team and innovation in all areas of the business. The second one is treat all individuals with dignity. The third one is honesty and integrity in all we do. Fourth, open and direct communication. And the fifth one is fiscal responsibility. We view these values as the cornerstone of our goal-setting efforts that we expect will drive lasting sustainability achievements for the benefit of our stakeholders. For Semtech, as relates to our ESG efforts, we have internal green programs that we seek to reduce the waste of material and manufacturing control. For years now, we've been providing innovative and disruptive technology platforms that enable our customers to deliver solutions that create a smarter, more connected and sustainable world. And we've also created and implemented a number of guidelines and business practices that promote the interests of our employees, our local communities, customers, and then the environment in general. I work closely, as I mentioned, with the CEO and the committee of the board. And in this particular case, it's primarily our nominating and governance committee to drive these kind of results around these efforts by overseeing the strategies, the goals, the programs, our practices that are designed to drive sustainable long-term results and efficiencies.
And so, while some organizations have, let's call them rather idealistic goals for their ESG and related efforts, it's definitely important to establish attainable and sustainable goals. How does an organization and a leader in your position ensure this happens?
Yeah, it may be different in different companies, but I think in general there are 3 keys to ensuring that the goals are attainable and sustainable. First, I think you've got to look intrinsically. You need to align with the purpose that's important in your core, in your mission. Secondly, I think you need to make sure your ESG goals are aligned with your organization's strategic values. And then third, we have to think long term. We can't get caught up in what you hear these days a lot about greenwashing, and you hear a lot of cliches. I'm not a big fan of cliches, but you hear a lot of people, in this, as relates to the ESG world, say a lot of things. And it's important that they mean what they say, and that they can continue to carry through with those kind of programs.
Yeah. What role does alignment across the organization, such as yours with over 1,400 employees, play in ensuring success with ESG?
Yeah, I think for us, we're focused on proactive initiatives where building a better world is baked into the core of our brand, our ethos, and solutions. With a variety of different focus areas, technology offerings, and groups, having alignment from the top down, I think, is critically important. And then to capitalize on this opportunity requires leaders that are flexible, adaptable, and agile, showcasing the ability to evolve as the world moves around it. I think this is, particularly true in the ESG world, which is a highly volatile and evolving, state of things right now. The ESG world a couple of years ago looks much different than it does today. And alignment is critical because no ESG programs can be successful without the buy-in and participation, I think, of every employee. By knowing where we're heading, knowing what we're trying to achieve, we can pull from the same thread, eliminating silos and simplifying the ESG decision making.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit here and talk about organizations that aren't quite where yours is at, but haven't quite made the leap towards a more formal ESG initiative and how they can get started. So how should executives think about getting started with a program like this? And what are the elements they think should be, what are the elements they should make sure are put in place?
I think the most important part of getting an ESG program started, Greg, is to know your real story and what your true value is. Every company, I think, has a unique story. Some of them may be similar because they're similar in the same industry, but in general, every company, I think, has a unique story to tell. And ESG should be a core pillar, not just an aside. The reason I say that, because I think it's step one in understanding where your company can deliver value when it comes to ESG, and that the value is attainable and sustainable. A few other elements to consider, I think, is to listen to your customers and your key stakeholders. You need to build the right environment internally, and you need to leverage the tools to measure success, which aren't all that easy to figure out.
Yeah, yeah. What about the role that employees can play in shaping ESG efforts? When's the right time to get them involved in driving some of these initiatives?
I think it's important that every employee, is critical to the company's ESG efforts. In one way or another, they're all involved in ESG each and every day. ESG performance is also tied to both workforce satisfaction and to overall competitive advantages in the marketplace. Studies from Marshall McLennan show that millennials and Gen Z talent will make up over 70% of the world's workforce by 2029. And we know that ESG is particularly important to these generations. And so the time to shape the ESG initiatives and get other employees involved is right now. I think these findings also suggest that a strong ESG performance can help with employee satisfaction. No matter what the role an employee plays with an organization, they're contributing to a piece, I think, of the overall ESG puzzle. At Semtech, we have a very dedicated workforce that have developed and they continue to develop innovative products that preserve and protect families, the communities, and our planet. For example, Semtech's LoRa devices are being leveraged as building blocks for a variety of IoT environmental applications. These go to maximize efficiencies, reduce waste, and better manage our precious natural resources. Our protection products group offers the industry's highest level of defense against threats resulting from the premature failure of systems containing electronics such as automobiles, industrial manufacturing, and mobile phone networks, as well as electronic products and other smartphones, computers, tablets, monitors, and networking switches. And then, our third division, which is our Signal Integrity Products Group, their Tri-Edge platform, for example, is an innovative analog semiconductor technology that's developed to ensure reliable transmission of high-speed data from point A to point B in an optical communications network, which goes to reduce power consumption, latency, and cost. So I think, in general, we in some ways have natural technologies that lend themselves to the whole ESG effort just by the very nature of what our products do, and our companies are very excited about that.
Yeah, that's great to hear that. Yeah, it's kind of baked into a lot of what you're doing. Where do you see the future of ESG playing within organizations? Will it eventually become standardized or a standard in all organizations, or do we still have a ways to go? What do you think is going to drive the change towards further adoption of something that clearly has benefits?
I saw an article I think from Price Waterhouse, which said that 91% of business leaders believe that their company has a responsibility to act on ESG issues. And I think this points toward ESG being a standard for all organizations if it hasn't already become one of those. However, it covers such a broad stroke within the workplace right now that it's easy for an organization to get overwhelmed or lose focus on their overall mission as a company. It's important to be strategic, purposeful, and linking those with actions and outcomes that drive the value creation for an organization. I think it's also important that companies focus on what their core problems they're trying to develop a solution for and how this ties to creating a better world. I also think the impact of environmental, social, and governance principles are key factors in the decision-making process. And these inform, I think, various aspects of the operations, at least in our business. What will drive change? First, I think continued and sustained investment in ESG. Secondly, new generations of the workforce and changing customer expectations. And third, I think finding a better understanding how to measure, quantify, and value the impact of ESG efforts. There's not likely a magic formula. Again, this depends from company to company. And I think people are not only looking, obviously, in the environmental space as to how they can reduce carbon emissions and how you quantify that, but it's through all aspects of ESG in the social, human capital management side of it, as well as the government side as well.
Yeah, agreed. Well, one last question before we wrap up here. Again, as Semtech's first ESG officer, what has been the most rewarding aspect of leading Semtech's ESG efforts?
Well, it's been an honor. It's been fun, and it's been a challenge for us. A pillar of ESG is tied to innovating solutions for a more sustainable planet. Which is a value that resonates across all of our key stakeholders, from employees to customers to partners to the company's electrical engineers and our board members and management. The most rewarding aspect of leading these efforts, to me, I think, is bringing the people and organizations together to solve for a common interest, to protect the planet for generations to come. I view this as a powerful driver of change, and concept is something we can all generally agree on. We know there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world right now that is where there is a lot of discourse, but I think in principle, the entire world almost agrees on these concepts.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, Chuck, thank you so much for joining the show. For those listening, what's the best way for them to keep up with what you're doing?
I have a LinkedIn account, and they're certainly welcome to join and see that. We are the company also issues press releases and blogs and other forms of social media to keep up with that. And at Semtech, it's not just myself. There are a number of our other executives that are doing the same thing. We think we have a great story to tell about the various kinds of advanced technology platforms that we have that enable a smarter, more sustainable planet, and we're very proud to tell that story.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, and thanks for sharing that story here. Again, I'd like to thank Chuck Ammann, EVP, Chief Legal Officer, and Chief ESG Officer at Semtech for joining the show. Thanks again for listening to The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom. See you next week. Thanks again for listening to The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.theagilebrand.show. To get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, visit my website at gregkihlstrom.com. Until next week, stay agile.